Welcome to our podcast offerings, where we invite you to take responsibility for your own well being, reclaim your energetic sovereignty, embody authentic living, and come home to your true self. We are two sisters, two oceans apart. Maya Lotz from the Energy for Life Wellbeing Practice and Sandy Lotz Viner from the Inspired Life Coaching Practice. Together, we bring you the Ocean of Abundance podcast and lots of possibilities to engage with when you choose to align with the wisdom of nature.
Hello, Maya. Lovely to have you on this call today. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And are we going to talk about sovereignty today?
Let's do a little check in on where we both are with our personal journeys with sovereignty and then share a little bit about that experience with our audience. I'm going to ask you a question. How did you become aware of the concept of sovereignty?
So it wasn't in my vocabulary almost 5 years ago. And on a very low day, I basically decided I have all these tools in my proverbial toolkit. What is it that I'm not getting about it? Because I've been on the yoga mat since I was 14. Reiki has been in my life since around about the millennium, and many other tools and things. But the things seem to be stuck in that on your knees moment. Mine happened to be in the dirt, in the felt. I just literally said, I give up. Something in me knows there is something bigger than me. And I clearly heard, what if you really tried living it? And it's not as if I wasn't. I'd been playing with the idea in my mind that when we approach ourselves or our clients, we are often wanting to fix, or we're looking for the magic bullet. And I'd been privy to the growing dialogue around there's nothing to fix here, there's nothing broken. All of your parts are welcome here. And the first podcast after that happened to be where somebody spoke about exactly the same experience, where she just decided, well, nothing else is working. So now I'm just dedicating my life to Reiki, meditation, and whatever her practices. And in my own journey, then, whenever I listened to resources or like-minded people, the term sovereignty started coming up. And then one day on one of the podcasts, one of the young women addressed sovereignty. And they actually were talking about us being energetic beings. And she was explaining, I am a sovereign energetic being, and my energy is mine alone. And then she went into a whole explanation. And it was very much like a rewording almost of the precepts. You go on to say, I reclaim and recall my energy. And it landed in me and it made sense that when I work within my bubble and I recall my energy, give an example, if I'm stuck in stories about the past, memories about the past, worries about the future. Now think Reiki precepts. Just for today, I will not anger, I will not worry. But we're often angry at someone. There, I just sent my energy over there. Or I'm worried, and there I've sent my energy there. Past, future, not now. And that's where I started working with that. And at the same time, I happened to come across an energetic exercise from Brune Harris, Wings of Strength, and something within me intuitively started saying this sovereign exercise that I'd learned with Wings of Strength. And then I realized that's what I need to do every day, is to come into my bubble. I am a sovereign energetic being. My energy is mine and mine alone. I reclaim and recall my energy, and I let go what is not mine. I let go of the lower vibrations that prevent me from being in alignment with my true nature and in resonance with my highest good. When I align with my true nature and my highest good, I walk through the day with a confidence when I relate to myself and others. And the next step is, I am grateful for. Basically, sovereignty then for me became this embodiment of the precepts, and it resonates. I'm even speaking now, like my heart feels like it's opening and glowing. That was a lot of words for a short question.
That's how this topic is. But then when you start unpacking it and peeling the layers back, there's so much to say, which makes it so exciting. And also means what the same reason why we won't get it in the first minute. It's a concept, and then we have to deconstruct the concept, and then we got to define it, and then we got to personalize it, and then we got to fine tune it. And that's probably our life's work. You were saying about the lady that said, she's going to dedicate her life to her meditation and her Reiki practice. And that's really what we're saying. These tools, which we sometimes use like quick tricks to help us get back, whatever that is, because we're not there going back. We're always going forward to the next best version of ourselves. But because we have this distorted idea of how it's going to feel and look, instead of just using all the energy to be present and move forward, knowing you're supported. And so we relearn a lot of times the things we've already learned, but in a deeper, more somatic way, become second nature. So healthy.
How did you come across sovereignty? I'd like to ask that back, but I also want to respond. What you just said is true. It isn't as if my learning and my years on the mat or my previous experiences with other modalities, including Reiki, didn't work. It all brought me to that point. And something that came with this integration of sovereignty in my approach was the realization that my real work is this internal work. It is not necessarily the work you go out and do. My tendency to externally reference kept hijacking my purpose of being immersed in the yoga and Reiki and body wisdom and
Wow.
nature.
I'm just going to jump in and answer your question about my journey, about how I got here. I think I can relate to you starting with yoga on the mat. I think my entry into my whole growth journey came from physical. That was my awareness. And through the years, it moved into there's a mental, emotional component. There's also a spiritual component. There's an energetic component. And like you said, the first teachings weren't lost or incorrect or insufficient. They were right for the student I was at the time. And then my yearning for a deeper learning combined with my life experiences that would bring me different challenges made me want to go deeper and deeper into learning more tools. And when I studied the grief process a lot, somewhere in my life, I realized it's actually a lot to do with energetics. This sounds really strange, but as you know, I had a career as a pharmacist, and my biggest concern when Tony passed away was how do I manage what's going on with me and my pain to the point that I can be functional in this world again and show up in my career and still benefit the people around me. And that really means you got to manage your energetics, your emotions, your thoughts, but all of those will lead to your energy. And so grief just sucks the life out of you energetically. And so you're trying to make up for how can I help myself physically? How can I help myself with my thought process, my rest? You realize that the best I can do is to contain my mess. And when I show up for others, I don't bleed on them. I am just present. And it's less of a doing for or doing and more of a presence, of awareness when you're interacting. And the minute you realize I'm losing it, which was often for me, I would step out of the arena where I was working in to regroup with whatever tools I had at that point. And because I came through the physical part, for me, that was always exercise, breath work, solitude, go inside, meditate, count, sensory work. But then Reiki came back into my life, and I realized I don't have to make it a first aid kit when I need it. I know these things. What if I make it lifestyle? Because life doesn't really get easier. We just get better at handling life. And therefore, whatever I put in needs to become second nature, habits, lifestyle. Can't be that thing I'm trying to find when I'm in a crisis. It needs to become mine. We've all gone through the phase where I need to have this crystal or this oil or this mantra. Sometimes you don't have any of that, but you always have the energetic component if you're aware of it. And that's what I love about Reiki, because it doesn't matter on what level we're working, what component I'm struggling with. It will go energetically and do what needs to be done for everyone's highest good. I just have to step out of the way. I acknowledge it. I make it my go-to. I embody this. So I still like to play with my crystals and sniff my oils. I know that the sovereignty or the energetics that we are managing are not dependent on them being present in my vicinity. I can visualize the oil, I can imagine the crystal, and I can still energetically manage my energy, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's great to have the tools, but you don't need them. You need to be them and to trust, as you say, that energetically that life force energy is flowing exactly where it needs to go, and that every moment is perfect as it arrives. When we step into our human being versus the life we have been living, which was more human doing, then we
Absolutely.
step into that compassionate presence.
It's interesting for me how we all work our own unique paths and we come across similar concepts and ideas. And what I heard there in your explanation for me sounds like my idea of sovereignty. But let's formalize it a little bit before we continue chatting. So, what is sovereignty? In our Sanctuary for Life approach, with our Fern approach present and all the elements that we use in our offerings and in our own respective well-being practices, the following definition resonated. Self-sovereignty is the spiritual practice of remembering and reclaiming your authority over your whole life, your energy and inner world, rather than relying on external validation or outer authority. It involves acting as the conscious steward of your mind, body, spirit, and emotions, and making choices aligned with your true divine nature.
And that is beautifully said. And a lot of that also resonates around self-care, core principle of the Fern approach.
So right. Let's pause for a moment and maybe unpack what we mean by self-care. So how would you explain self-care, Sandy?
I don't think you can get to sovereignty without self-care, if you think about it, because I'm taking care of my own energy and I'm managing that. And so we have different needs. Only the person living in the body will know what their needs are at any particular time. So the only person that really can take care of those needs would be the self. We've got different speeds with which we metabolize what's going on with us in life. Somebody wakes up and they immediately know, I'm hungry. That's a need, right? So they get up and they take care of that. Somebody else wakes up and they don't know what they're feeling. So they need to linger a little bit longer in their morning practice or in their morning routine. I'm one of those. I can, if I have to, jump out of bed and start acting, but it's not my preferred way of entering the day. And if I have to do it by default, just jump in and act, I will have to be extra careful of what my needs are in that day. And so if you then ask for somebody to be a little bit more patient with you, it's not selfish, it's self-care. If you're telling somebody, sorry, I'm a little bit late because I overslept. Can you give me 5 minutes before I enter the meeting? That's self-care, but often seen as selfish.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was talking to a care worker. I helped her to arrive at our understanding of self-care was to say to her, so this person that you're caring for, you are not trying to fix her. She has needs. You're taking care of her, helping her to have the care she needs as a self. And that helped that person change gears. And I also added in there that, as you just said, self-care looks different for each person. I have the kind of nervous system where if you approach it to head on, or if I even think about, inverted commas, fixing something, then my system will derail it. So it's in part why I rededicated my I rededicated my life to Reiki and yoga and well-being, and redid my qualifications, because when I initially trained, we were very externally focused, and we were also focused, there's a problem and how are we going to remedy it? And then it would work for a little, but sometimes I would experience a bigger backlash than the original problem. In came this conversation about we are whole. We're approaching the whole being, especially if we bear in mind Reiki. You are whole just as you are. You are perfect just as you are. Can you show up with compassion for the sad one today, or the one who made a mistake? And can you approach your self-care with that compassion? There's nothing to fix. I'll give a better example. This person was mentioning health situations. And I'm saying, we're not going to show up to try and remedy your health problems. We're going to show up for ourselves, really, really show up. And that might include eating better, sleeping better. We're not going to aim to tell the self, you're broken, I'm going to fix you. We're showing up to tell the self, I love you and I'm here to take care of you.
Beautiful. And it reminds me of the saying, give the body what it needs and it will heal itself. And isn't that self-care? If you know your nervous system, like you explained, you know what would be the crucial ingredients that would make your day flow smoothly. And you're taking ownership of that, even though other people might not understand or even agree.
And it is challenging. For example, like you, in an ideal world, I'd also like to start slower. It doesn't mean I don't wake up early. It often does. But we are talking about that waking up day in and day out with an alarm clock because you have commitments, or that type of thing. So my preference is to wake up without an alarm clock after a good night's sleep. And sometimes I'm lucky, and on days where I have commitments, I wake up naturally anyway because I have good self-care routines prior to sleep. But I've also learned that I know before I enter the world, I need my self-Reiki. I need to work with my sovereignty. I have a little practice that I use, and then I feel set up for the day. And obviously some other physical things that I do, watering yourself, feeding yourself, taking, just general hygiene things that help me. And that means that I want to be awake before the rest of the household's awake. I need that time. And as you say, that can often be challenging. And for me, I've found relating to others challenging, and so often thought I'm at fault or I'm wrong, and then learn to put their needs or my perception of their needs ahead of my own. Sovereignty has helped me to realize I really do need to arrive in the day with myself first, check in with her needs, and then thing in the day flows better, including relating to others.
Right. So what I'm hearing is self-care is a choice that we make on a daily basis and probably even during the day. And it's a core principle that will be in our lifestyle so that we can get to sovereignty.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned that earlier, like not only is self-care the core principle of Sanctuary for Life, but it's very clear that in order to embrace sovereignty, self-care needs to be present.
So getting back to the sovereignty, I'm going to make a comment. When I look at my self-care and I want to start doing a negative on myself by labeling it as indulgent, selfish, something that's not serving me well, the label I'm giving myself, what is happening to my energy? How does that get me to sovereignty? So I think what I'm trying to get to is the energy of how that would feel in my body. I'm leaking with the self-talk.
It's interesting because as you said that, I remembered something that we looked at when we were planning for our podcast. And there's a little sentence we had that said, in essence, self-sovereignty is the transition from being ruled by outside influences to being the conscious king and queen of your own internal kingdom. And so in this instance, we may well be the saboteur of our own kingdom. And
Right.
if you are sovereign, and you're standing there in your wholeness, awareness, then you are love and you are in balance, or you have the intentions to enter the day lovingly with yourself and with others. And if you are having negative self-talk, let's talk about energy and frequency. I mean, you're lowering your frequency. And if you are feeling sovereign, when you say the word sovereign, even there's a sense of confidence, and you want your energy to be on board with you and to exude from you that true nature of yours. And that confidence isn't arrogance, it is just, I feel good in my skin. How I speak to myself is empowering. I know who showed up today and I'm taking care of her needs. Maybe a sad woke up today, maybe an over exuberant me woke up today. If I'm aware of who is here, then I know how to cater for her needs today and bring that energy into more harmonious state as I navigate through the day, because sovereignty is also about energy management. So when I say over exuberance, that would be a thing where you're not pouring all your energy too fast, too furious, and that's not going to be sustainable. And I think sustainability for us is also a key concept of how we view sovereignty. We're not saying don't be spontaneous and don't have moments of effusiveness, but when we bring ourselves into consciously work with our sovereignty, then we remember I'm the one managing my energy here. And what kind of energy do I want to have in my sovereign bubble?
Right. So that reminds me of was like self-care is not apart from the sovereignty concept. Self-care for me is almost the application. Self-care in my daily application adds to my sovereignty in the sense that it's a moving process. It continues. It's not just the book ending of the day, it's the continual awareness of my inner world while I'm functioning in a external world as well. Right? It's not just what I do in the mornings, but also as I go through the day and I move with other people, I'm still doing self-care. It looks different to the morning practice or the evening routine or the weekly routine. This is a course correction where I am aware of yes, I can from the outside being influenced, which might affect my energy, or it will affect my energy in some shape or form. Or I can, without the externals, I can also be maybe negatively impacting my energy. And then I have to take ownership of that part and to hold both of those as opportunities to work with sovereignty and integrating that into a lifestyle that can support that.
I think the more you work with it, the more it becomes fluid and more present. But as with anything in life, life happens, we have moods, internal weather, and some days you might need more check-ins and some days you might fly through it. But definitely we're saying that when you practice self-sovereignty, you're enabling deep trust, emotional regulation, freedom from limiting and inherited patterns. But it's ongoing because you might leave the home feeling whole in your bubble, and then you become aware, because also working with the self-sovereignty and the self-care, we're talking about cultivating self-awareness, which means I register, oh, my energy is getting low now, and then I check in. Do I need water? Do I need to eat? I've had enough interactions now and I just need a moment, silence, breather. It's staying aware throughout the day and not feeling guilty because you're needing a break, or realize I did have breakfast, but breakfast didn't last. I used more energy than I thought. So it is my responsibility. And I think that self-care is your responsibility and sovereignty is about realizing my energy is mine.
Yeah, and what if self-care is our responsibility? Yes, that's true. What if sovereignty then is a need to claim that and own that? And you're right, it has to do with self-awareness and self-connection. It's difficult to be self-aware if we don't have practices where we reflect, or daily moments when we pause to reflect. And so that needs to be built into your lifestyle. For instance, we were talking earlier about that we all like to get up at a casual pace. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Sometimes you have obligations that take you beyond your sleep pattern, and your body will be forgiving, but it won't forget. And so if we find ourselves, it doesn't mean we can't for a short period step away from the normal routine, and we can manage that. But at some point we need to make up, and we all will know, after 2 nights of not, I need more downtime to recover. And that knowledge to make that into a self-care routine. And unfortunately, sometimes that would look like I cannot go to the social gathering on Saturday because I've been working on a work deadline and I need my sleep, or I need my nature, or I need something else. I was watching a documentary about a country singer, and she said, I think I am a introvert extrovert. And so she loves what she does. She's a Grammy Award winning country singer. She loves that. She's a songwriter as well. So she knows that when she's doing that, she's just flowing. So it's always going to be part of her life. But she has other needs, like she wants to be a mother one day, and she wants to be in a relationship, and she does kind of like the slow country life. So when she's not performing, as much as she loves people, she knows she needs downtime to process. So when she was younger and trying to make it in the business, people, you would say, go on the weekend and do X. And she would say, I would love to, but I have to go and do my performing. She used to perform at old retirement homes or something like that. She wants to do the gig versus the party because it fed her soul. And that for me is knowing your needs, doing your self care, claiming your sovereignty, and still being successful, whatever success is that you want to define, right?
Yeah, so use another word. She's true to her purpose. That is her heart song, and that's what she's following.
Right.
She's listening.
Like what I'm trying to maybe say is that's the reason we choose the self care, which might sometimes be labeled as selfish by people that aren't aware of what we're talking about, or when we're not completely aware why we're doing this. But it could also be a discipline, on the other hand, where we're not self neglecting for the sake of pleasing.
I think an important point here is when I take care of my self sovereignty, it has a beneficial impact on how I engage with everyone else. When I neglect myself, it has a negative effect on everyone else, including myself. And so the kind of self care we're talking about here, this checking in, am I aligned with my true nature? Am I in resonance with my highest good? Am I aware of my needs? So it needs quiet time, like you say, self-reflection, and regularly engaging to understand, know who I am, know what I need. And it also, I think, is healthier connections, especially if we can overcome habit of externally referencing. I know I need a nap, but I'm going to disappoint Sandy if I'm not there on time. So, okay, I can message Sandy, I'm really exhausted after ... Is it possible to... We're talking about sovereignty, which for me also incorporates integrity. And we're not talking about avoiding. We're actually talking about showing up, really, really show, and checking in with self first.
Yeah, but I like the piece where you were saying, I check in with self first, correct? But then I communicate to other, because we have commitments to other people. And part of self care is asking for what you need, not just from yourself, but from others. So that example of you needing a nap, but we have a commitment, I would hope that we are surrounded by people most of the time that can hold that space for us when we communicate our needs, that they can respond appropriately to that.
And I think if we align every day with our highest values and our purpose rather than social conditioning, then in time people come to see and understand and value that we have integrity and we are not pulling that card every 2 weeks. It's genuine. There's a sincerity and an honesty and integrity here.
Right. This is not a planned activity that becomes a habit. I don't become reliant on you being compassionate. I think it comes down to knowing what that is for you and then communicating it to yourself and others if they were going to be impacted by it. So, what's the value of this day that I'm looking for? I'm setting an intention, and then during the day, just to come back to what is that intention? Do I want a fluid, smooth day? When I stay in my sovereignty and I adjust to the moment, I believe that whoever the person I bring to any situation is my highest version. So how can that be? How can that not work? I have a friend that always says to me, she works as an energy worker, and she always says, I want to think about that commitment because when it's a yes for me, it's a solid. I will be able to show up 100%. And so that's why sometimes I have to say no, because I don't want to arrive at the commitment or the agreement or the contract, whatever version of that is, not fully present.
I learned that the more I worked with the concept of sovereignty, the more confident I was able to relay my need to other and be heard. And I often felt that I wasn't heard. And the reason I wasn't heard is because I was relaying my need from a place of fear and not from a place of love and not from a place of peace. So your friend made me think of, we know those times where there's an absolute yes coming from inside, and we know those times when there's a no, and we know there's that time where you think not sure. And that one made me think of fascia, our sixth sense. It's always talking. We just don't listen, partly because our world is busy. We talk a lot. There's a lot of noise, actual noise and energetic noise. So showing up for yourself, for your sovereignty checks, and ensuring that you retain your sovereignty throughout the day helps one overcome that. And then more and more you show up with your heart light shining. And that also helped me to really grasp why I need to be sovereign, so that I can hear the whispers of my heart and what my innate intelligence is guiding me to do. And when I come in connection with others from that place, it's just softer and smoother, and you keep the flow, as you say.
Yeah, I think that was a great description of why we want sovereignty. That mental, emotional freedom that you spoke about. We're making an authentic decision. We're displaying healthy boundaries, and we're taking ownership of our own energy. So I'm just wondering, when you were talking about the sovereignty, the check-ins we do for our listeners, would this be a good time to, maybe almost coming to the end of the podcast, close with a exercise? Because a lot of us set up with great intention, and then, as you said, life happens. And so, what would be guideposts for us during the day to course correct, to bring us back towards our intention, which is self sovereignty? How would we notice we're drifting?
So our first check-in is the gut check. Am I making this choice because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what someone else will think? So there's that moment where, am I externally referencing, or am I bearing witness to self? If you know that this is a choice you want, then you're on track. If the answer is no, then you can ask yourself, what choices will bring me back to my sovereignty in alignment with my true self? Basically, what do I need here? If this is not my desire, and maybe that moment of I'm afraid I'll let someone down, and realize, whoa, let me pause, check in. Your gut will guide you. This is a yes for me, or this is a no. And how do I navigate back home?
Yeah, I think we all have a knowing of the gut feeling, and then we start arguing with it. So here is the use the gut as a messenger, as a confidant for the check ins. There's also energy check ins. We'll so focused on managing time in the linear world. I've got the to-do list and the time clock. It's so important. But actually, if you think about sovereignty, we're talking about energy. Say you wake up in the morning and you have 100 units of energy, like your electricity. You only get so many units and then the electricity is done. So if I have 100 units, it's like, how do I want to protect that 100 units during the day? And then I want to be sensitive to which activities add, because not all activities will drain my energy. I want to use my 100 units wisely. So the energy check would be, doesn't matter where I am or what activity I'm involved with, when that comes to an end or halfway through the activity, I can just ask myself the question, do I feel drained right now? And then if the answer is yes, where is it going to? Is it the activity I'm involved with that isn't too much for my physical energy? Then I need to know, I need to address that. I need to eat something. Or am I wandering in my mind, self-talking, and then my energy is going to the story I'm telling myself about the situation? Because that I can claim back as well, course correct. Am I maybe needing movement? I've been sitting for too long. Maybe it's just a physical need of you're not getting enough oxygen going through you and you call for a break. So we will learn our own body types and whether we can commit to a 4-hour marathon Zoom meeting or whether we are better with 90 minutes or whether we are better with reviewing it at a later time. Which activities will take a lot out of me? And if it does, what do I do in the next activity to balance that back? So we're going to use energy and then we can do an energizing activity to complement or counterbalance that. So it's as simple as that. Do I feel drained right now? Yes. Course correct. No. Gratitude.
And that beautifully leads into the ownership check, because you're owning and acknowledging this is my energy. And now we're moving on to the ownership check where you're saying, am I blaming a situation for my mood, or can I choose how I react to it? How do I acknowledge what is coming up for me? And what is the most compassionate choice I can make for myself? That is a little bit about that external referencing again. Feeling victim to, you're not victim to, you have choice. If something happens that is unpleasant and it is another person saying maybe something unpleasant to you, how I respond is my choice. And it takes time and practice to learn to respond versus reacting. But you don't have domain over the other person, and you don't know what happened in their day today. But you do have ownership over self. So you might need to take a nice deep breath, or 2 or 3, course correct, as Sandy says, and then respond. Or perhaps the most compassionate thing to do is to say, I apologize, but I need to tend to something urgently, and remove yourself from the situation if it's one of those kind of situations.
I love how you explain taking ownership of what's going on for the self and then compassionately requesting support should you need, like I need to just remove myself, as opposed to what we normally can do and jump to the other. This situation is making me, or the room is making me, or it's about I am experiencing this. I'm going to own this and then ask for what I need so I can be sovereign with my energy.
Exactly. And I learned this little line. What here is mine. What here is mine. I mean, I used to say it in the beginning like a little mantra, especially when you're in a challenging conversation. We encounter that. It's life on earth. And we want to respond, or maybe the person just needs to vent. And before you know it, you've got entangled again. And there's the art of listening. And we all get enthusiastic and then we jump in and want to engage. And to become aware, to just hold off a little. It's natural to want to connect and engage, but the better I can listen, the more I can hear myself and other. And then while I'm listening to other, I can ask what here is mine, especially if it's something that may have raised a reaction. And then I tend to what is mine and I allow other to tend to what is theirs.
Yeah, and I think that beautifully leads into the last check we're going to give, which is the authenticity check. You ask yourself, does this action feel like me, or am I wearing a mask to fit in? And we've all been in situations like that, where by all means we have to read the room and be respectful of the setting. But if everybody is at a party and they are exuberant and drinking, I'll use that as an example, and I am no longer aligned with that activity, am I going to forego my authentic values to participate, not to break custom or expectation? Or am I going to stand in my values and do something else, a soft drink? So that will be, one of those situations. Or when somebody asks you to participate in an activity that sounds very nice and social, but at this moment, it's not ringing true for me. And that could be, I work a lot with people in grief. I'm having a birthday party. Would you like to come? And there's a part of you that really would like to show up for your friend, but there's another part of you that knows deep down you're not ready for that amount of energy around you of happy people. And how do you do both of those, right? Not disappoint the friend, but honor your own wishes. So it might look like I really want to go, but I know I can't stay very long. So if I ask my friend, is it okay if I just stop by for like 20 minutes and she can hold that space for you, then that would be the authentic check for you. This could be a workable solution for the sovereignty. Why? And I'm still having good boundaries. It's very subtle, as you can see, with these things. And like any soft skill, I think we've needed them more now than ever. And it's not something we learn officially anywhere. The more we can share work like this that can help the individual and then the community they work in, I think it's going to be so essential for us to exercise the soft skill muscles until it's second nature.
Yeah, I was reflecting on my own journey, and we grew up with parents who knew us quite well in hindsight, and they would cater for downtime. And for myself, as I went through life, as you socialize, you do things. But when you begin remembering who you are, you realize my needs are different from my best friend or from those people I enjoy spending time with. I like being with them for 20 minutes and then my cup is full and I need to go. When I leave, I'm still digesting and integrating the experience. Other people can digest and integrate on the trot. We're each unique, so you need to navigate what works for you. And your example of the festivities there was key. Somebody was sharing a festivity they had, and then she began apologizing to me because what she was describing was a happy party with drinks and joviality. And I said, no, I am so enjoying hearing about you having a good time. I like the idea of it, but I've just learned that that kind of setting doesn't work for who I am. And if I do go, it's a short moment, or I prefer not to go because I need to do a lot of energy management afterwards. And that's who I am. I like people, I like engaging with them. But if I had to look at someone else, they might think I don't like connecting in activities. No, I like connecting in presence, sincere, authentic, and less is more for me. Each of us need to find out what's my appropriate self-care and how do I practice sovereignty and claim my own sovereignty. And before we close, I want to announce that in our next podcast, we are going to be talking about sovereignty circles. So at Sanctuary for Life, once a month, we have silent, online, intentional, small group spaces where we come together in compassionate presence for yourself and for the others who attend. Anything you want to add before we wrap up, my dear sister?
Thank you, Maya, for today and everything you shared with us. And let's continue the conversation next time.
Thank you, Sandy. I really appreciate your input and facilitating this recording. If anyone's interested in joining the Sovereignty Circles, The details will be in the show notes, but we also look forward to telling you more about those in our next podcast. We also have written a blog post about it on our website, and you can find our web address in the show notes as well. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.